We'll go ahead and get started right at 6. Yeah, other people can roll in as they will, no worries. But thanks for being here, everybody. I know that I'm in Lexington. It's kind of snowy here right now. So if you drop or whatever, no worries. Just hop back in. There'll also be a recording of this that we will post later. Speaking of other speaking engagements, we have a couple of others that are scheduled toward the end of this month and at the beginning of next. So keep on the lookout for that. The actual topics are still to be announced, so can't give you too many details on that, but that'll be a good teaser for now. Um, yeah, other than that, just generally, please keep muted unless you're asking like a question or something. You can always ask questions in the chat and I will feed them to Manny. But really, beyond that, that's pretty much all the housekeeping stuff. Um, so we have, I believe it's Manny Ledoux, would be how I would pronounce it. I may have messed that up, but he is a software engineer at Checker. He is based out of Frankfort, Kentucky. So if you're in some of the central Kentucky networking events, maybe you'll run into him. But yeah, I'll let him take it away.
Yeah, hey, thanks everyone. Hi, my name is Manny. I'm a platform engineer at a company called Checker. What we do is process background checks. Yeah, it's pretty unglamorous work, but the engineering problems are interesting. And so what that means is I build internal tools and infrastructure that other engineers use to ship features. And so I don't build products that you see. I build the stuff behind it that makes everything possible for the most part. So before we get into it, I just kind of want to say I know where you're sitting right now. I was in a boot camp not all that long ago. I remember what it felt like, you know, the excitement, the uncertainty, you wondering if it was going to turn into something. So I figured I'd come here today and lend you my experience and let you know that it can. So how did I get here? I didn't take the right path. I got out of jail in 2019 after doing about 22 months. I had no plans, no money, no prospects. I know this slide says that I've been through recovery. Any other addicts in this room, though, if you're not in recovery, you're in relapse. So I'm still in recovery. But the traditional route in the tech, 4-year degree, internships, all that stuff really wasn't on the table for me. I didn't have a tech background. I kind of just stumbled into the industry after I left California. I moved to South Carolina to go back to, and I started going back to school. And the school that I went to wouldn't let you just pick your own curriculum. They forced you to pick a major and then told you what classes to take, which was new to me. So I sat down in the counselor's office and just kind of perused a little list and was like, okay, computers, I'm good at those. Let's try doing that. So then my second semester in school, COVID came and shut all the schools down. And that's when I went to a coding boot camp. It was a wild 2020, but here I am 5 years later, 6 years later now, I guess. I'm a platform engineer at a real company. I have a real salary and I solve real problems. I work on systems that process millions of background checks. It's not really glamorous, but it's real engineering and it's a lot of fun. The boot camp path really can and does lead somewhere. That's it. That's going to be the whole talk for the most part. But so where I started, one of the things that I think matters most when you're trying to break into the industry is just building things, you know, and I found it easier to build things I was passionate about. Not what someone tells you to build, not something you think that's going to look cool on a job posting, but when you build things you care about, you'll see them through. So for me, I had an idea for an app called Ledoux about 6 years before I built it. 6 years I sat on it. And it was something that I kept coming back to, but felt that I never had the technical expertise to accomplish. Honestly, probably could have had I given it a shot sooner. But now it's alive and I use it every day. I built it because it was something that I thought was going to be useful for me. Same thing, I'm still working on an app called Did You? It's just an accountability app. It's still in beta. But I just wanted like a no BS way of saying like, this is what you said you were going to get done today. And did you do it? Yes or no? You know? And now I'm actually working on a Vision Pro app because I think spatial computing is absolutely fascinating. So far, I've tried to build 2 Vision Pro apps, and I've failed spectacularly both times, but I'm having a great time, you know, so that's really what matters. The first app has little objects in it you can move, and when you try to grab one of them and move it, it doesn't just move, it like zips across the entire universe, never to be seen again. But it's fun. So boot camp is great for learning the fundamentals. You need that foundation. Excuse me, but everything is assigned. Someone tells you what you're going to build, gives you the requirements, and sets a deadline. So outside of the work you do for CodeU, I think it's a good idea to start thinking about things you're passionate about and things you can build. So if there's something that you keep thinking about or that keeps coming back to you, don't wait for permission. Just try and build it. And so finding stuff to build is a I think a skill or a passion that translates. That exact same energy is what can make me potentially valuable to my company. So for example, we had an AI hack week at Checker, and instead of joining somebody else's project, I was trying to figure out like a good problem I could solve. And the team that I'm on owns some very complex code that we get tickets from ops all the time to answer questions. And so what I built was basically a RAG model that combs through the code, grabs the pertinent stuff, sends it over to a large language model. And I built a chat interface into a Chrome extension. And so now ops doesn't have to put in a ticket and wait 2 days for us to answer. They can just open up this chatbot, and they pretty much have a chat with the code that's live in the servers in real time. So that was pretty cool, I thought. And it has reduced our support burden, which is nice too. And so, you know, when I got hired at first, I had a GitHub full of projects, no extra certifications, but that was enough. And honestly, I don't even know how close they looked at those projects, but the experience I gained from building those made me comfortable and confident in interviews. And I was able to talk about the things I built with some authority. And curious people will always have a place in this industry. Is because people, as long as you're curious, you'll always be learning, always be building, and always be finding the next interesting problem. I don't know how long this is going to go. All right. So the second thing that I wanted to talk about was pretty much what surprised me the most and what the actual job is like compared to the stuff that you're learning right now. It wasn't something that anybody could prepare me for, not something anybody was just hiding. It was just something I kind of had to experience to understand. So everything in boot camp is greenfield. You get a blank file, you build it from scratch. You know every line because you wrote it. The scope is small and the requirements are clear, and there's only one deadline. Almost, in my experience, almost nothing in my job actually works like that. When I showed up to Checker, the code base had already been built by hundreds of engineers over a decade. I mean, it was enormous. There are actually, I got a screenshot here, which is like the live stats from our monolith, our big server that we run, basically. Almost 80,000 commits, 6,300 branches, and 1.1 terabyte storage. So it is big. And then there's everything around the code too, which just comes with the job learning. You know, pull requests, doing code reviews, figuring out and setting up deployment pipelines, learning on-call rotations. Eventually, you're stuck debugging things in code that you've never seen, written by people who have left the company years ago. There's no like README decisions, or there's no README that explains weird decisions that were made back in 2018. You know, it was overwhelming, especially at first, not because I thought that I couldn't do it, but just because there was so much to it. I wasn't sure how I was ever going to understand it all. And I've come to realize now that I just won't. You know, I'm an expert in my little field of things that I own and my little sphere, and anything outside of that, I hand off to that expert in that field, or in their little area. So just so you know, yeah, hopefully it doesn't catch you off guard the same way it caught me off guard. All right, so the feeling of being overwhelmed was completely normal. I mean, even going through school, or this feeling of imposter syndrome that everybody talks about, that stuff, it's all completely normal. I make sure everybody hears that. Every single engineer who's ever walked into a legacy code base has felt it. Senior engineers feel it when they switch companies. Uh, I, even people when they move throughout the same, sorry, my cats are doing something back there. Even when they move throughout the same company, but they switch teams, it's the same thing. You're basically starting over from scratch. So it's not just this feeling of potentially being overwhelmed. It's not just a boot camp thing. It's pretty much an industry thing. So my experience and my timeline looks kind of something like what you see on the screen here. Day one, you're just trying to get into your dev environment set up and you're already confused, you know, like, why can't I get this code to run locally? Or, you know, I can't even download this, or I'm having authentication issues with that, or this package doesn't exist anymore. It's just all kinds of problems. It's just a lot. So after a few months, you can start to get comfortable, you know, you start to understand or get a feeling where things live, who you might be able to go talk to get help, which which service or which functionality is owned by which team, or yeah, who to go talk to if you need advice, or you learn to navigate the code base. You can eventually you get to learn to ship small features without too much hand holding. And I know for me, closer to a year, that's when I started to feel proficient. That's when I really started feeling comfortable reviewing other people's code and making architectural decisions and starting to build features end to end rather than just kind of piecemeal tickets here and now. And now I've been at Checker for, it'll be 4 years and like 2 months. I still don't know the whole system. Nobody does, you know, not even the people who have been here for years like me. The code base is way too big for any one person to hold in their head. And that's fine. That's just the reality of it. And for people who are have concerns about AI taking over, that is also a huge mark against them, because one of the AI's biggest problems is memory, which is why they have some real issues in legacy code bases. But that's how it's going to be at any company at scale. So when you get your first job and you feel like you're drowning, remember this: it's only temporary, and it does get better, and it's not a sign that you don't belong here, because you do. Right? And so the real skill isn't knowing everything. It's knowing how to find answers inside something you don't fully understand. That's it. That's really all I do, is I just try to solve problems in a code base that I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry. All right. So, but anyway, learning to read code you didn't write is a skill. You have to learn to skim. You have to learn to follow a thread. You have to figure out what a function does without reading every line. You get better at it over time. You'll start to see patterns, and you'll start to know like when to kind of go down rabbit holes or follow code paths and try to find if there's any nuance or anything happening that shouldn't be happening. And so, but anyway, asking the right questions, that's a skill too. When you're new, you might feel like every question is dumb. It's not. If this was easy, everyone would do it. The best engineers I work with ask great questions, and honestly, that's what makes them great engineers. Because I can ship something I'm fairly confident in, and then someone who's been around a little bit longer may have a question, and that question will usually expose something that I had missed. And so, but they don't pretend to know things they don't. They say, I don't know this part. Can someone help me walk through it? That's not weakness. That's efficiency. So moving through uncertainty is probably one of the biggest things you can do or learn to do as a skill set. In a boot camp, you always know what you're building. At work, sometimes the requirements are vague. The deadlines get pushed up or unclear. and you may have to figure out an approach yourself. So you learn to be comfortable with like the mindset of like, I don't have the full picture yet, but I can still get this done. You just got to know for yourself that you can attack it, and you'll get through it. All these are valuable skills. They're not talent, they're practice. And once you have them, it can transfer everywhere. A new job, a new stack, a new code base, doesn't matter. Oh, I got that too slow. And closing the pendulum. All right. So talking about AI earlier, I want to be real where things are at right now. I can't really sugarcoat it. The market is rough. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you it's great right now. It's not. Things are looking better, but it's still a hard industry right now. So you've probably already seen on the news or had friends that have experienced some type of like layoffs or going through hiring freezes. Companies wanting 5 years of experience for junior roles. It's tough out there right now. But here's the thing to know about the markets. They're a pendulum, and they will always swing back. This isn't the first downturn in tech, and it probably won't be the last. It wasn't great when I was looking either, honestly. And it won't be the last thing when things get tight. So I guess the question is, what are you going to do when the pendulum is on the wrong side? Because people who come out ahead when it swings back are the ones who kept building when everybody else was waiting. They're the people who stayed curious, they kept learning, they kept shipping, they kept stacking skills. And I like to say that luck is when hard work meets opportunity. And so as long as you're putting in the hard work, when opportunity shows up, you can get lucky. So I know you're sitting in a boot camp right now. It's a tough market. A lot of people looked at this market and decided just to wait it out. You know, you didn't. You're here. You're investing in yourself, and you're learning to build really, really cool things. Where, I mean, the sky is the limit. Honestly, I know everything. Websites power the entire world right now. Websites and web apps. You know, everybody needs a website, and so that's not a liability. And that's the kind of thing that people are going to always be needed to do this kind of work. And I think that once the pendulum swings back, there's probably going to be needed more and more and more, especially to comb through a lot of this AI generated code. And so the door isn't closed. Keep shipping things, keep finding problems, keep going on, even when it feels like no one's paying attention, because sometimes, eventually, somebody will. The door isn't closed. I'm proof of that with my wild record, the recovery, the boot camp, and now I'm very lucky to say that I'm a platform engineer at Checker. And so if I was able to walk through that door, you can walk through it too. So go build something cool and tell me about it, please. Thank you for sticking around, and sorry I burned through it a little faster than I would. But if you have questions, let's connect. My email, my LinkedIn, and my GitHub.
I was gonna say we actually have some questions already. So
Sweet. That's what I
yeah,
was hoping for.
Amanda asked, how would you recommend preparing for the differences between a boot camp and a job? Are there like resources working with mock or real code that you've used, or any advice?
Yeah, I would say that probably trying to find to and contribute to open source projects would be a great way. A lot of those open source projects start out really, really big too when you first get a hold of them, and then find a small issue. Usually they will, people who run open source projects will put up like GitHub issues specifically for people who are new to making newer contributions to open source repositories. And then that'll also give you good experience to learning like the so once you're done with your code, how you get your code into the main repository with everybody else's code. So you put like a pull request, it'll show the changes, and then whatever information you deem necessary to put in there, then the person will review it. and they'll either give you comments or they'll approve it. If they give you comments, they things to go look at or fix, and after they approve it, then they merge it in. And it's pretty cool to see your first merge in some open source code. I'm not gonna lie. So if there's any open source stuff that you feel calls you, I would highly encourage you to take a stab at it.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, just as an aside on that, open source projects, most of the people that run them are really cool people. They're really helpful and nice. So even if you don't fully understand how to contribute, and you do it anyway, they're going to be pretty nice and sort of walking you through it. And you get a lot of really good connections that way too, which is never a bad thing. So definitely give it a go. Can't hurt. We had an anonymous question ask, what boot camp did you use?
Yeah, so I the boot camp I went to initially was called the Kenzie Academy. They ended up being purchased by Southern New Hampshire University for a little bit, and then they went after some time. They folded the doors, and so it is now defunct. But I guess I could talk a little bit about it. The one that I went to was a full year, full stack. So it was a full 50 years, or 50 years, excuse me, 50 weeks, 40 hours a week, full stack. So we did Node Server JS, and then React front end, and then Python back end, and with React front end on that too. So it was a lot.
Yeah, some of those like longer ones, I imagine, feel like 50 years, right? Like they're really good. Like there's a lot going on in them, you know what I mean? We got another question
That
just
was a
now.
Freudian slip. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's how it felt. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so that's actually a really interesting one. So, what you said about building projects you're passionate about instead of like worrying about what looks good on a resume, how do you do that when you still need a job at the end of the day?
Yeah, I would say that those projects do look good on the resume, because it shows that you find a problem and solve it type of thing. At least that's what I think. And I've always, I don't know, I was able to, sorry, my cat. I think of a lot more cooler features when it was something that I was excited about. Yeah. I just, sorry, he's over here saying, but yeah, sorry, I got lost for this. Yeah, so so I think building the projects that matter to you will end up being better, like resume projects, something to show employers, and it's something that it gives you cool things to talk about.
I would say too, in my experience when talking to people about projects, I've talked with some people who did interesting projects, but you could tell that they were just doing it for the learning the tool. But on the people who do projects that they're really passionate about, they like get way deeper into it. They can talk a lot in a lot grander detail about like some of the stuff they did and their inspiration for it. And honestly, that's more of a hook than you just saying like, "Oh, I used AWS because I think AWS is cool." But that's just my opinion too. Any other questions or anything?
And building stuff, I mean, it encouraged me to go out and learn things that I otherwise wouldn't have learned. Like these defunct Vision Pro apps that I have, no one else will ever see them because they're super defunct. But I learned a lot about like how things interact in some spatial computing stuff that was, I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. But I don't know how well that's going to translate to anything I do, but it was still a lot of fun.
I will say I do have a question personally.
Yeah,
It's a me question. So, any hurdles that you experienced whenever you first got into a production database? Like any troubles that you ran into?
Oh, it was troubles. There was just a lot of things that kind of blew my mind. Like the first time I had to go into Snowflake. If you guys don't know what Snowflake is, it's basically an application where we kind of load all of our database data into. That way we can make SQL queries without having to like console into production. And so the first time I ran like a SQL query against one of our databases that has like hundreds of millions of records in it versus, and it took quite some time to come back. And I wasn't even sure why, you know, so that took a little bit of debugging, and it was, you know, I was trying to build a query on an index field, but anyway, you learn things, you know. You learn to be, at least I learned to be really, really careful about every line of code that goes into the data, that goes into the code base. I didn't, when before I started working here, I didn't really understand how important being so meticulous was until you cause an incident. And then at a company at our scale, you know, if something goes down for 10, 20 minutes, I mean, that's thousands of lost dollars in revenue. And so we have to be very, very particular. I learned that there are going to be some very nuanced problems that you are just not ready for. We had an incident one time when we were switching Kafka providers. Kafka is a messaging system for distributed services, so that services that are not connected together can talk to each other. And we were switching providers for that. And the old provider was a single thread, and so the worker would basically pick up one message and process it. The new provider had multiple threads, and so it would batch pick up like 50 messages and then process them. But we didn't know it was supposed to do that, so we didn't set the timeout high enough. And we had this weird thing where it would time out and the pod would crash, but the some of the messages in the queue weren't getting processed, and we just could not figure out what was happening because those messages were getting dropped and not processed, which is an issue. And turns out that no one knew that the new provider was multi-threaded. And so, just funny little, I would have never thought I would have experienced something so nuanced coming out of school. We're having, if you have like weird service connection issues where, there's, like too many threads in the pool, and then you start getting connection errors building up, and then you don't understand why, and it's because there's a backlog of messages, and then once they process too many messages, the pods fail, and it snowballs. And so, all kinds of just weird things happen that you don't really think of as things that can go wrong, but that's what keeps it fun and interesting.
Yeah, totally fair. We do have Justin with a question. So he has people asking him to build websites for them. He's though a little bit apprehensive on it. He feels a little bit scared that he can't get it right. Sort of whenever he starts on the project. Should he wait until he's a little bit more experienced with the web dev stuff, or should he just pick up the jobs and just see how it goes?
I would say as long as you're upfront with people. I don't know I don't know like what the situation is, but I mean, as long as you're upfront with people, and I think it's probably a great way to get some experience. I would probably do it, to be honest with you.
I would agree. Yeah, I just dive into stuff, and it's like it usually works out. So like, yeah, I mean, as long as you're upfront with people, like don't lie, but as long as you're upfront with folks, people are pretty cool about most things.
Especially if it's someone like a friend, a neighbor, family member, something like that, then absolutely 100%.
Yep, that's the best way to get a little experience. Hannah asked, was Checker the first tech company you worked at after the boot camp? Or like, how did you find your first role?
Actually, so Checker was the second company. Right out of a boot camp, I got a job at it's a cloud provider, a storage cloud provider. They're called Dropbox. They basically just like it's like Google Cloud. Um, I was there for 5 months. Things just didn't work out. It was pretty cool though. I was on the platform automation team. So if you ever like have Dropbox and you drop a PDF and it automatically does some automation to it, I built that tool. But yeah, I
Oh,
do
and
work remotely. Yeah, I do work remotely. Even though across the industry there has been a big push for like return to office, and I know the company I work for would no longer hire me today because I am not near a hub, and so um, I know like Checkers hiring specifically in Denver and San Francisco area. Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm sure if it's your church, I'm sure they'll be happy to have something usable,
yeah,
especially if they don't,
agreed, Justin.
especially if they don't have something now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
something's
then,
better than nothing.
yeah, and then always too, you could, I mean, you have plenty of resources here, and I mean, if you ever need help, you can always reach out to me too. I'd be more than happy to take a look or do what I can do to give you a hand.
What I was going to say too, I know that sort of with Code U shutting down in September and things, like connect with as many people as you can on LinkedIn. People do answer LinkedIn messages. I get technical questions all the time through LinkedIn. Like, do that. Absolutely. It's a great way to keep in touch with folks. We also have an alumni group on LinkedIn and Discord and stuff, but that's a really good way to keep in touch with folks.
Uh, I found personally reaching out to tech recruiters through LinkedIn has probably born most fruit of any type of cold contact I've ever seen. Typically the recruiters are incentivized to get you an interview and get you through the interview process and uh, try to help you get an offer generally because it helps them. And so um, I found yeah, I mean, I have friends that got jobs at Blizzard, Microsoft, Apple. I mean, all through reaching out to tech recruiters on LinkedIn. So yeah, would definitely recommend that. Could not recommend that enough. And that's actually how so one of the tech recruiters at Checker reached out to me on LinkedIn.
Yep. Never be afraid to reach out to people.
That's the name of the game. It's not necessarily about what you know; it's about who you know. I mean, it's about, I guess, in this industry, you kind of got to know what you know too, but who you know is also important.
Any other questions or anything? And again, too, if you think of something later, we can always throw them in Slack. You can also just DM people if you'd like, Manny if you'd like, or me, and I can pass it on, whatever. We're around.
Well, thank you everybody for coming.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone. So again, with that, I'll drop the recording in announcements probably in a couple of days once everything is processed. But yeah, thanks everybody.